Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we're going to be talking about the rookie quarterbacks and where we believe their best landing spot would be in the 2025 NFL Draft.
Hike!
So in this episode, this is not a mock draft. This is not maybe possibly realistically where these guys are going to go. These are places that for Joe and I, we believe is their best. And what we mean by that is landing spot matters quite a bit. So if they go to a bad landing spot, they may not see the field. They may not have the right combination of offensive line or head coach or offensive coordinator. So we're identifying based on these quarterbacks where we feel the best landing spot would be for these players. So Joe, let's talk about the first one, quarterback Cam Ward. What is the best landing spot for him in your mind?
Yeah, I've got his landing spot as the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think right now, I know there's rumors swirling with Aaron Rodgers and him potentially going there. Is he going to potentially retire? Maybe he goes to Minnesota. But right now, with the Pittsburgh Steelers not having a quarterback, to me, they are probably the best landing spot for a potential rookie to come in, or even, the older veteran guy like Aaron Rodgers. But because I really like, Arthur Smith has got a quarterback friendly system. It's a run the ball first system. They've also got DK Metcalf now paired with George Pickens. They got Parrot Freiermuth at tight end as well. Guys like Calvin Austin, maybe Roman Wilson stays healthy. You got him coming out of the slot as well. So I think the Steelers really is a nice landing spot for a rookie quarterback, and I could see Cam Ward doing well there.
So for me, I felt like his best rookie quarterback landing spot here for our man here, Cam Ward, is going to be Tennessee Titans. They really think that him actually partnering up with Callahan's a good offensive mind, and I think it will be good for the organization too. I think Callahan is going to have at least one more year, something I was definitely thinking about as far as when a rookie quarterback gets drafted, it's better off for them if they can have a second year with that head coach versus bringing in a completely new regime and possibly turning the page. So for me, in my opinion, look at a guy like Will Levis, right? You saw Will Levis was drafted by Mike Vrabel, and then, Callahan comes in, is not his guy. He got to play one season, but now more than likely he's getting the boot. So I think Cam Ward has a great opportunity to develop and grow under Callahan's system. He does have some weapons. Obviously, he could use some more weapons. They did a lot to increase that offensive line over the offseason to make it better. So I think Cam Ward going to the Titans, I think, could be a great landing spot for him.
Yeah, that's definitely the most realistic landing spot with everything we're hearing. It's fully anticipated that the Titans will go ahead and take him with the number one overall pick.
Are you enjoying this episode so far? Well, if you are, subscribe to our YouTube channel, smash that like button, and hit the notification bell for upcoming videos. We do videos throughout the year, so you're not going to want to miss what we have in store. All right, so let's head over to our next guy, quarterback Shedeur Sanders. What's the best landing spot for him?
Yeah, I've got him with the Cleveland Browns. I think Kevin Stefanski has got a really quarterback-friendly system. We've seen it with the veteran quarterbacks he's had, Joe Flacco, even guys like Jameis Winston. And being that, Shedeur Sanders is kind of that pocket passer, kind of like those guys, I really feel like with the play-action game, Stefanski and the Browns like to run the ball. And then you got guys like Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, who, we expect him to keep on building off of the season that he had last year, pair him up with David Njoku at the tight end position as well. And Stefanski really likes to hit those, deeper dig type of routes. And Shedeur Sanders is familiar with those with Colorado, and I think he fits pretty well there.
So my spot might be a little unorthodox, but I'm going to go with the Raiders. I think that he is honestly somewhat of a carbon copy of a Geno Smith, just a younger, better version of Geno Smith. And I actually think Shedeur Sanders could benefit from sitting right away. I don't think, a lot of times with the craze that we are in the NFL and expecting rookies to have immediate impact, right now they traded for Geno Smith, and they've been talking about how, he's their long-term quarterback. Well, if you look at his contract, Joe, he's only got 1 year left.
Yep.
Then he's a free agent. So, they could say all they want, but the contract is kind of proof of the pudding that maybe he's just a bridge guy for them. And Pete Carroll comes in. Pete Carroll brings a lot of stability. I don't know how long he plans to coach for. I think it's probably going to be at least the next 2 or 3 years. But I think Shedeur Sanders could benefit from that type of environment and really help him to kind of move forward. He's got Tom Brady would be a mentor, as a minority owner of the Raiders. So I think Shedeur Sanders could benefit from sitting for a little bit, possibly even the entire year, having a redshirt year and then taking in that next year. But I really like the option of him going to the Raiders.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know, I know Dion would probably like that a lot better than him playing with a team like the Giants or the Cleveland Browns in the cold weather and those, bad organizations. You kind of mentioned that he might, try to get Shedeur out of those bad situations and force him onto a team. And definitely he would like the Las Vegas market a lot better.
Well, and Shedeur, at least from his Instagram post or what have you, would suggest that he'd like to play, in Las Vegas, which I think, to me, if you want to play somewhere, you're going to be motivated. And, I think that matters. I really do. So I think him going to Las Vegas, he's got Brock Bowers. And, obviously, besides that, the team's kind of bare bones. But, if he's not going to be playing immediately, he can really kind of build around him going in the future. So I think it can make a lot of sense.
And I could see it. I mean, I see the fit there. I think it definitely does make sense. And like you said, I mean, at the moment, Geno Smith isn't looking like the long-term option. So they're going to need to have plans after that, which they currently don't have on the roster.
All right, Joe, let's head over to Jaxson Dart. What's the best landing spot for him?
Yeah, I picked the Tennessee Titans for Jaxson Dart. Just a spot that he can go ahead and play right away. Titans need a quarterback. You mentioned Callahan being there, offensive mind head coach, should have some stability at least for the first 2 years of his career there. And then he's got some decent weapons with a guy like Kelvin Ridley on the outside, Chigakonko at tight end, Tyler Boyd in the slot, and then see what other pieces they had as well.
Here's my wild card. This is my curveball,
okay.
as far as his exercise goes. So buckle up on this one. For me, it's San Francisco 49ers.
Okay.
They're in the top 12. And if you think about it, Brock Purdy's in the final year of his contract. They're going to have to rely on him to be the guy. Now that a lot of the team has, come and left, the windows started to close. Well, Jaxson Dart, he's a very athletic guy. He's fantastic in play action. And that's where I think he would really benefit in the Kyle Shanahan system, because it relies so much on the run game and play action. But he's athletic. He's got a good deep ball. He even has some mobility. He adds a lot of dimension to the offense that, you hear even a guy like Ben Johnson talking about Caleb Williams, comparing him compared to Jared Goff. It's just like he offers so much more to the offense. So to me, Purdy is very vanilla. Can Purdy, really allow this team to move forward? And are they gonna pay him all that money? So, if they want to have a plan B contingency plan, you bring in a guy like Jaxson Dart. This isn't the most strong quarterback class by any means. I don't know really if any of these guys are really going to pan out and be a QB1. So to me, this is a really ideal landing spot that if he goes there and if he is given the opportunity as a shot in the dark.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. But I think that, to me, if he were to go there and get that opportunity, it'd be big.
Yeah, no, I mean, it'd be interesting. I mean, honestly, a lot of these guys, some of these guys that aren't projected to be even first rounders might get taken later in the draft. I mean, San Francisco, is shown to be a great landing spot. I mean, Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant and shown to be productive for fantasy and even in the NFL for the 49ers. So, yeah, I mean, I could definitely see where that would make sense.
All right, so heading over to our next quarterback Jalen Milroe. Joe, the guy that you ranked pretty high back when we did our mock draft. Maybe things will change when we talk about it in the future, but for now, where would you want Milroe to go?
Yeah, similar to with your thoughts about Jaxson Dart, I'd like him to go to the Los Angeles Rams. And, I feel like Jalen Milroe will benefit from sitting for maybe a year, maybe even 2 years, as he's really raw. But I mean, his athleticism just jumps out. I mean, you saw how fast he ran the 40 at the combine as well. He just a athletic freak. Just he needs to learn and dial things in. And I feel like Matthew Stafford looks like he's going to be with the Rams for the next 2 years. unless he decides to, barring a retirement, but under contract for the next 2 years. So I feel like Milroe being able to kind of sit back and have a coach like Sean McVay and be a part of that offense, and even, a really heavy play action style offense, and being able to throw to a guy like Puka Nacua would be an interesting spot for him.
So this is going to be another one that's kind of a unique pick. I'm going to go with the Miami Dolphins. Reason being is, Tua has, not been able to stay healthy. There's always those question marks about the concussion history. I understand they signed Zach Wilson, but I think we can both agree that that ship has come and gone when it comes to Zach Wilson. So I think it has. And so bringing in a guy like Jalen Milroe to be the backup, you might be able to have packages where, he, possibly comes in and does stuff like Lamar Jackson. I think Mike McDaniel is a very creative offensive mind where he could utilize that skill set. And not to mention, if Tua were to get injured and he steps in, he may not be the most accurate guy. He can be a little more erratic with his throws, but you got guys like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle with the amount of separation they create. You don't have to be all that accurate. As long as you're in the general radius, they're going to be able to get him. And I think even with McDaniel's scheme, his scheming, I think it could really benefit him. So, would it be the starter? No. And I think you also, picked him as a spot where he wouldn't be the starter. It's one of those things where I think you would have to develop into the starter. So that's why I kind of liked Miami, because if Tua were to have another concussion scare, then, he then would have the opportunity to take over the reins, and all he would have to beat is Zach Wilson. You say that, Zach Wilson still's got it, but I would say that's a great opportunity for Milroe.
Yeah, no, that would be an interesting opportunity for Milroe. He is raw. I mean, I think he needs time. He also, is coming out of school early as well. So, typically we see guys that stay and play more college football tend to do better. Look at a guy like Anthony Richardson, really, that's an extreme example, but he barely played any football, and he probably could have benefited a lot for just, sitting back and watching versus kind of just getting thrown into the situation he did. But the one thing that would be interesting, though, the Mike McDaniel style offense is predicated so much on accuracy, and you say like Milroe's hit or miss ability. I just wonder if that is such a great fit, because that's what makes Tua and McDaniel's system so great, is Tua can hit those spots with the pinpoint accuracy. He's not gonna, he's not the athletic guy that Milroe is and create, but he's got the accuracy and the timing routes for McDaniel's system.
You are right, and that is true, but also he has guys like Jalen Waddle and
I know.
That don't require him to be all that accurate. So that's where I guess in my mind, maybe if he didn't create as much separation, it wouldn't be an issue. And it's outside the box. Look, the reality is, how successful has McDaniels really been with Tua and Miami? I think in some ways they have to do somewhat of a shakeup. They haven't been able to get out of the first round of the playoffs. They would get gotten booted out both times in the wild card. So,
yeah.
To me, it's like, how successful can they really be? And they have to have a contingency plan in case Tua, goes down again.
Yeah, no, they definitely do. Because you're not wrong. The Tua concussion stuff is definitely scary.
All right, so next guy, we're going to be talking about a guy who you feel is quite overrated. Maybe it shouldn't have even been included in this list. Quinn Ewers, Joe. Where would you have him go as the best landing spot for him?
Yeah, this guy just doesn't excite me, and I don't think he's going to be that great. But in terms of landing spots, Dave, you wanted to talk about him. I've got him going to the New Orleans Saints. I think same kind of philosophy. I think he could benefit from sitting behind Derek Carr for a year, go to the New Orleans Saints with Kellen Moore being there. They've got, as long as Olave is going to stay with New Orleans, they've got some interesting passing options there. And Kellen Moore, as far as fantasy goes, he's, the guys like Dak Prescott had a really good year with him. And, his offense seems to be pretty quarterback friendly and get the best out of the quarterback position. So even though I'm not the biggest fan of Quinn Ewers, I do think it'd be interesting to pair him up with Kellen Moore in New Orleans there.
So ultimately, I was kind of in between a few, and this is kind of taking the cat out of the bag for our next quarterback and our last quarterback. But I was thinking about the Giants, but I didn't have any of them go to the Giants because ultimately, I don't really know if Joe Shane and Brian Daboll make it out of the year, and you've got Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston there. So if they don't make it next year, that way we talked about, then you're talking a regime turnover change. And then these guys, don't even, to me, they are kind of behind the eight ball at that point, because now you're going to have a new staff come in and say, this guy, I didn't draft him. And then they could just say, you know what, we're going to go and get our quarterback and get our guy. So ultimately, I picked the New Orleans Saints as well for Quinn Ewers. I think it's a quarterback-friendly system with Kellen Moore as the coach. Like you said, he can sit behind Derek Carr. And the other thing is, too, I mean, you saw how much play action the Eagles utilized. I think Quinn Ewers, from what I understand, is good at the play action, as well as that ability for the deep ball. You got guys like Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave who are able to stretch the field. So he is able to utilize that big playability. So I think I agree with you in looking at the tape. I guess I wasn't all that excited watching, some of his highlights either. But at the end of the day, I would say that that's a good landing spot for him.
Yeah, 100%. And like you mentioned, as to why we're talking about him, and he is, he's a name. He's been talked about for a long time in college football, and now he's got the opportunity to be in the NFL. So I think it's interesting. We both picked the Saints the first time we picked the same landing spot here.
Yeah, I mean, I believe there's a former 5-star recruit who was in Ohio State, transferred to Texas. A guy who always had a lot of buzz, but he never really materialized in college. All right, going to our last guy, a guy you insisted we had to include in this episode. I hope I say it correctly. Tyler Shough.
Tyler Shough.
Shough. Oh, look at that. Even better. Where's he going, Joe? What's the best landing spot for him?
Yeah, so I mean, you kind of mentioned it. I've got him going to the New York Giants, and I think this landing spot makes sense for him just because he's a guy who's played a lot of college football. He's been in college for 7 years, been kind of banged up and injured, bounced around, but this last year at Louisville, he had a really impressive touchdown interception ratio. He had 23 touchdowns to only 6 picks, and let's face it, Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston are on 1-year deals. This guy is, I think, pretty NFL ready with how long he has played in college. And I think, we've seen Russell Wilson battle last year with the calf injury. If anything were to happen with him, I think he could possibly, step in for the Giants and see what Brian Daboll can do with him.
So he's definitely a riser. You're not wrong. And as I was kind of looking on those Twitter streets or X streets, if you will, the buzz is ringing.
Yeah,
with
the buzz is big on him right now.
Yeah, they're talking about how this guy could be the steal of the draft as far as the quarterback position goes, and really surprise some people. I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers here.
Okay.
I could have probably picked one of the earlier quarterbacks to go with him, but honestly, his deep ball is fantastic. And when you've got DK Metcalf and George Pickens on both sides, to me, you're going to have to utilize the deep ball. He's more of a prototypical pocket passer, which, Pittsburgh is more accustomed to seeing. I mean, you had guys like a Ben Roethlisberger who was a pocket passer, but he was able to
very
shut off tacklers and play was Big Ben. So, it'd be curious to know if they're gonna, you had guys like Mason Rudolph who started for a little bit. Now he's the only quarterback there, but they kind of have a type. Pickett wasn't even the most mobile guy, although he's a little smaller. So I actually think the Shough could actually be pretty good with Pittsburgh because of his traits and his abilities for what that offense needs from him. I thought also Jaxson Dart for them just because of what his ability is as well. But ultimately, I just felt like, I went with Dart with the Niners because I thought it would be, a match made in heaven. So I was like, I'm going to go with them. And then for this one, I'm going to go with Shough with the Steelers.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be necessarily surprised if, they don't really have a quarterback that they like at, pick 21 there, and they decide to wait for, day 2 to grab a quarterback. And I could see them taking a flyer on Shough. I think, you mentioned they have a kind of a type and a typical prototype for a quarterback. And, at this point of his career, Russell Wilson isn't the most, agile guy either. And he was turned into more of a pocket passer lately. So I think Shough to the Steelers makes a ton of sense.
Well, and even more too, right? I mean, like at the end of the day, I think Aaron Rodgers probably ends up in Pittsburgh. I mean, there's still rumblings of him going to Minnesota and him wanting to go there. Maybe he ends up retiring, but if Rodgers does go there, that's the only place he's visited, then ultimately, no matter whoever the quarterback is, I should say, they're not going to play unless Aaron Rodgers gets injured or maybe he gets benched, kind of similar to what happened, in the final games of the season. So to me, at the end of the day, if you're expecting somebody to start, if Rodgers is there, they're not going to get it. So to me, Shough could be able to sit behind Rodgers and possibly get an opportunity later on. If it looked I think you agree, right? And that's the most likely scenario.
Yeah, I that was the thing that was tough about the Pittsburgh Steelers, is because I think the most likely scenario is Rodgers does land there, and then it's like, whoever you put there is going to have to sit behind Rodgers for a year, at least anyways, and then get their shot.
So that does it for this episode. We went in a different angle than maybe what you're accustomed to seeing out here, whether you're listening to us or watching this episode. We try to do something a little bit different, thinking about where are the best landing spots. We can get really excited about these prospects, but at the end of the day, where do they go? And depending on where they go, heck, Joe, you and I were extremely disappointed when Brock Bowers went to the Raiders. It didn't matter, right? But it can matter depending on where these guys go. You see Zach Wilson go to the Jets, you saw what happened to Zach Wilson. Maybe if he went to somewhere else, maybe he would have been better off. You saw how excited people were with Trey Lance. He went to the Niners, and people were ecstatic, and look what happened to him. So It's not like it's the end-all, be-all, but it definitely is a factor that is a consideration when we think about these guys and where we want to draft them in our rookie drafts in the offseason.
Yeah, and I would have still been curious, man. Like, what would have happened if Kyle Shanahan would have got his way and Mac Jones would have went to the 49ers versus the New England Patriots? Curious. I know he's on the team now, but wonder how that would have looked from the jump if Kyle Shanahan was able to get his guy there.
Oh, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time.